I'm Steve Wiggins, and this is the Groundworks Ministries podcast. Today, our reading from the book of Proverbs, chapter 23. Let's focus on verses 4 and 5. Do not overwork to be rich, because of your own understanding cease. Will you set your eyes on that which is not? For riches certainly make themselves wings. They fly away like an eagle toward heaven. In Newport Beach, California, there is a shopping mall called Fashion Island. And it was one of my favorite places to frequent when I lived in Southern California. Everything about this mall was perfect, from the high-end boutique shopping and restaurant options to their landscaping even. There was a koi pond and the posh movie theater that had these wide leather recliners. It was a decade before other theaters started to add them. But my favorite thing about Fashion Island was how they would valet this long line of high-end sports cars in front of Canaletto Ristorante Veneto. And when I say high-end, well, I'm not talking about Mercedes and Porsche or BMW. Those are the high-end cars of Middle America. I'm talking about supercars, McLaren, Ferrari, Lamborghini, Bugatti, and all these one-off hand-built cars that you only see in magazines. And there they would be, just sitting in the sun, driven by the elite, men and women who have no problem spending $500,000 or more on a car. And then I recall slowly walking past that valet line with a friend from Newport Beach, marveling at these feats of automotive engineering art, really is what it is. And then I mumbled that age-old question, right? How can anyone afford these cars, and why can't I do that for a living? And then my friend, who is by no means poor, he answered and he says, don't be fooled. These guys are all just one bad business deal or one market downturn away from losing it all. Some folks simply just don't feel alive unless they're living on the edge. And you know, the only folks who know where the edge is are those who have gone over it. So while the supercar valet line is never ending, the group of guys that are driving up and tossing their keys to the valet is ever changing. And that's exactly the point of today's passage in Proverbs 23. If you put your trust and you bank your security in riches, beware. Riches have a tendency to fly away and leave you completely, financially and spiritually, bankrupt in the process. No, we cannot rely on riches or the obsessive pursuit thereof to fill the emptiness inside. Only the Messiah, Jesus, can do that. So focusing on building our earthly kingdoms just takes our focus off of God and the tasks that He has set apart specifically for us to labor toward in His kingdom. So when people seek God, they typically entreat Him for what He can do for them. And yet, who considers what God requires of us? Well, we have our requirements for God, but what does He require of us, of His plan for our lives? Any plan other than God's plan is destined to fail. Micah chapter 6, verse 8, He has shown you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Or what about Psalm 127, verse 1? Unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. Or what about Proverbs 30, verses 7 through 9? 2 things I request of you, deprive me not before I die. Remove falsehood and lies far from me. Give me neither poverty nor riches. Feed me with the food allotted to me, lest I be full and deny you, and say, who is the Lord? Or lest I be poor and steal and profane the name of my God. To be content is literally the greatest thing in the world. To know God and to know that He will provide for you and say, now, Lord, how should I labor in your kingdom? I'm Steve Wiggins, and this is the Groundworks Ministries podcast. Groundworks Ministries operates entirely from financial donations from people just like you. And yes, we do need your monthly support. Donating is secure and it's easy at our website, groundworksministries.com. Another way to help is to tell people about Groundworks Ministries. You can share these podcasts with friends and family and on your social media. And of course, you can always direct folks to our website, groundworksministries.com.